When it was opened here in Chicago in 1930, this was the largest building in the world, 4 million square feet. It is so large, it even has its own zip code. This is the Merchandise Mart. It's still the home of many wholesale businesses, but these days it has a new lease on life as home to business incubators, like this one called 1871. Entrepreneurs who want to start a business gather here early on to work on business plans and look for money. They rent space and facilities in the hope that their entrepreneurial idea will attract people with money, people called venture capitalists. I'm talking about people who are willing to risk lots of their money in order to help others get started. It works like this. One person has a great idea but no startup money. Another person has startup money but no great idea. What happens when you put them together? Sometimes they fail, but sometimes they succeed big time. And when they do, we all profit. That cell phone of yours, your computer, and many of the medicines that keep you well, they wouldn't have been invented if it hadn't been that a few people were willing to take a chance on a new idea and to place their personal fortunes at risk. And don't forget, along the way, the investments in these companies created lots of jobs and helped grow our American economy. Politicians try to create jobs with government programs. They make investments with taxpayers' money, but suffer no consequences if those investments go south and jobs disappear. The people you're about to meet invested their own money in what they thought was a winning idea, and the risk of failure hung over every investment. So watch and judge for yourself. Shouldn't we encourage our private inventors and the investors who take all the risk?
The risks were just enormous.
They came to me with no business plan.
Willing to risk everything.
You have to be a street fighter.
$1 million.
$10 billion.
Intel,
Apple,
Genentech,
Cisco,
Good markets.
create companies.
Growing companies.
Sky's the limit.
The rest is history.
I was in my laboratory, probably talking to students. Here's a call, comes out of the blue. This young guy wanted to know if the technology was ready to be commercialized. Then he said the magic word. He says, I have access to some money that would allow us to get started. And I said, okay. I said, where does the money originate? And he said, I'm a junior member at a venture capital firm. I went to look up what venture capital meant. I had never heard of it before.
I don't know how to write a business plan. I can only tell you how we read them. And we start at the back. And if the numbers are big, we look at the front to see what kind of business it is.
You have to look at the way conventional wisdom works and abandon it. No one has ever accused me of underestimating myself.
Jobs and Wozniak came up to see me. Steve Jobs was so visionary and so bright. I had to fire him, though.
Back in the spring of 1957, Arthur Rock was just a junior banker on Wall Street. But then one day, an unsolicited letter arrived at the office. The letter was unusual, and no one else at his brokerage firm knew what to do with it. It was a cry for help, and it would forever change the trajectory of Arthur Rock's life.
You gotta be lucky. Everybody's gonna be lucky at some time or another. The thing I'd say is I was lucky to be lucky early.
The letter on Arthur Rock's desk had come from 8 engineers in California, a group of brilliant young men who would soon become known as the Traitorous Eight.
We were young guys, a bunch of young engineers, and and the scientists mostly, working together at Shockley Semiconductor. Things had deteriorated at Shockley Lab. He was a very difficult person to work with, and a group of us started considering the possibility at least of leaving.
A group feeling arose to the effect that rather than leave one by one, we believe we are much more valuable to an employer as a group. These were, by their resumes, very superior people. And I thought, well, gee, maybe there's something here, something more valuable than just to be an employee.
That something that Arthur saw inspired him to step out of his ordinary role as a Wall Street banker. Arthur Rock had to get creative about finding capital for the Traders 8.
In fact, we sat down with the Wall Street Journal,
Looking for companies to ask to invest in these 8 fellas in forming a new company.
I think we had 35 companies.
All of them said no, no.
The attempt to start a new company might have ended then and there, with the Traders 8 returning to their job search and Arthur Rock admitting defeat. But then, Arthur received one last lead.
We were pretty much at wit's end, and somebody suggested that I see Sherman Fairchild. Sherman Fairchild was an entrepreneur himself and also a very wealthy man. He right away saw the possibilities and decided that Fairchild Cameron Instrument would invest the $1.5 million we were looking for.
With the $1.5 million Arthur raised, the Traders 8 started Fairchild Semiconductor in Mountain View, California, a sleepy rural town 35 miles south of San Francisco. Fairchild was the first company to manufacture the sophisticated silicon chips that would power computers, rockets, and spacecraft, paving the way for the high-tech age. In time, the fruit orchards surrounding Fairchild would give way to electronics companies, and the area would become famous as the Silicon Valley.